A white cotton ribbon rests quietly against a collarbone, holding generations of memory in a single knot. When she steps forward, the silk does not follow her body, it dances with the wind. Let us stand for a moment in the early morning shadow of an old stone wall in the Bukchon neighborhood. The city of Seoul is just waking up down below the hill. You can hear the distant hum of traffic shifting into gear, but up here in the narrow alleyways, the air is still crisp and smells faintly of pine and morning dew. A heavy wooden door slides open on its tracks. An older woman steps out into the courtyard to sweep the stones. She moves with a quiet, deliberate grace. But what catches your eye is not just the way she moves, but what moves with her. She is wearing something that looks entirely out of place in the modern rush of glass and steel, yet completely at home against the clay tiles of her roof. The fabric is a deep muted indigo, wide and forgiving, catching the morning light in its soft folds. As she lifts her broom, the sleeve curves downward like the eaves of a traditional house, creating a shape that feels profoundly architectural. There is a soft rustle, a sound like dry autumn leaves brushing against each other. It is the acoustic signature of layers of silk and cotton breathing in the morning air. We are looking at a garment that has witnessed empires rise and fall, survived wars, and quietly waited out the relentless march of modernization. We are looking at the soul of Korea, woven into thread. Welcome to Culture Journey. When we think of South Korea today, our minds automatically jump to the future. We envision the flashing neon signs of Gangnam, bullet trains slicing through mountains, and a society moving so fast, it feels a full decade ahead of the rest of the world. It is a country defined by its relentless pursuit of tomorrow. But if you step away from the main avenues and wander into the courtyards of ancient palaces, you will find a completely different rhythm. Today, we are slowing down to trace the threads of something far more profound than mere clothing. The Hanbok is a philosophy made tangible. Rather than treating the human body as something to be bound or shaped, it offers a space to be housed and respected. It mirrors the Korean landscape, holding the colors of soil, sky, and the changing seasons. To understand this fabric is to understand the quiet emotional undertow of a people who have protected their deep identity through centuries of profound change. Let us walk together into a world where beauty is found not in tightness or restriction, but in the breathing space between the cloth and the skin. If you look closely at the structured traditions of Western tailoring, particularly over the last few centuries, the goal has often been to sculpt and conquer the body. Fabric is cut, darted, and pulled tightly to cinch the waist, lift the shoulders, and display the human form. The clothing dictates exactly how you must stand and breathe. The Hanbok asks for none of this. It does not squeeze. It does not demand physical perfection from the person wearing it. Instead, it operates on a profound principle of emptiness. Local artisans and scholars often talk about the concept of negative space. The true beauty of this garment is not found in the woven silk itself, but in the empty air that lives inside the sleeves and beneath the wide skirts. When a woman walks in a traditional skirt, called a chima, she is not just moving pieces of fabric, she is capturing the wind. Imagine standing in a sunlit courtyard, watching someone walk past. The lines of the garment are not rigidly straight. The sleeve, known as the baere, falls in a gentle arc, perfectly mimicking the soft, upward curve of a traditional Korean roofline. At the neck, there is a stark white collar, the dongjang. It is a brilliant piece of design, a stiff, detachable ribbon that can be easily removed and swapped for a fresh one, framing the face in crisp perfection without ever needing to wash the delicate silk. This clean, severe line instantly draws your eye upward, bringing a sudden, sharp clarity to the soft, sweeping curves of the rest of the garment, framing the human face exactly like a portrait. You start to realize that this clothing was designed by people who spent a great deal of time quietly observing the natural world. They saw how a willow branch drops toward a river, how a bird folds its wing at rest, and they sewed those exact organic angles into their daily wear. When you put it on, your entire posture changes naturally. You cannot rush. You cannot take wide, aggressive strides. The layers demand a different pace, a softer and more grounded interaction with the earth beneath your feet. You find yourself walking with a quiet dignity simply because the cloth teaches you how to move. To truly appreciate the depth of this clothing, we must leave the city for a little while. We are traveling south to a small rural village where the air smells faintly of wood smoke and damp earth. Here, in a dusty courtyard filled with massive earthenware jars, the colors of the Hanbok are born. True traditional dyeing is not a matter of mixing chemicals in a sterile factory. It is a deeply unpredictable collaboration with nature, and nature is notoriously stubborn. Watch the hands of the master dyer. They are stained a permanent deep blue. She is working with indigo, stirring a massive vat of fermented leaves. The smell is pungent, earthy, and ancient. She takes a roll of raw, pale silk and submerges it completely into the dark liquid. When she pulls it out, the wet cloth looks like an ugly, oxidized green. But then the magic of chemistry and air happens. As you stand there watching, the oxygen in the breeze hits the wet silk. Slowly, right before your eyes, the green shifts. It deepens, turning into the most vibrant, piercing blue you have ever seen. It feels like watching the evening sky materialize on a piece of cloth. The colors of the Hanbok are traditionally drawn directly from the local landscape. Safflower yields a stunning blush pink. Onion skins provide a deep golden yellow. And if you travel to the southern island of Jeju, you will find persimmon juice rubbed vigorously into heavy cotton and left to bake in the autumn sun, creating a rich, leathery brown workwear that is practically waterproof. The people here did not want to stand apart from nature. They wanted to wear it. And because these colors come from the earth, they behave like the earth. Synthetic dyes stay brutally bright forever, but natural dyes fade with an undeniable grace. Over years of wearing and washing, a bright crimson skirt will soften into a muted, dusty rose. The garment ages alongside the person wearing it. It collects time. A grandmother's jacket has a completely different emotional tone than a young girl's festival dress. Not just in its cut, but in the way the sunlight has gently exhausted its color over 50 years of life. As the seasons change in Korea, so too does the texture of the culture. Summer in Korea brings a brutal, heavy humidity, a monsoon season that clings to the skin. During these months, the heavy silks are folded away, replaced by something entirely different. Wealthier families would turn to Hansan Remi, a luxurious sheer fabric woven from the fibers of a nettle plant, while commoners relied on simple, breathable woven hemp. The weaving process is so agonizingly fine and requires such intense labor that older women in the villages often ruin their teeth stripping the tough fibers by mouth. The resulting cloth is stiff, translucent, and incredibly light. It stands away from the sweaty skin, allowing the breeze to pass directly through the clothing. It looks like woven frost. Then, as the bitter Siberian winds sweep down the peninsula in winter, the people wrap themselves in heavy padded cottons and rich quilted silks, turning the body into a warm, insulated fortress. The clothing does not fight the climate. It surrenders to it and adapts. There is a specific sound that belongs only to the Hanbok. It is the swish of the stiff underskirt. If you sit in the polished wooden hallway of a traditional house during a family gathering, you can hear women moving through the distant rooms long before you see them. It is a constant whisper of silk rubbing against silk, an acoustic signature of celebration, preparation, and respect. But perhaps the most emotional part of the garment is the absolute simplest, the tying ribbon at the chest, known as the goram. Unlike a plastic button or a metal zipper, which are permanent and mechanical, this ribbon must be tied by hand every single time the jacket is worn. It is a deliberate, conscious act. There is a precise way to loop the silk so that one tail hangs slightly longer than the other, creating a beautiful, asymmetrical balance near the heart. For a small child, tying this complex knot is difficult, and so the act of getting dressed becomes an act of intense care. Imagine a mother kneeling on a warm, heated floor in winter, pulling her young daughter close. The child smells of baby powder and sweet rice. The mother's hands, warm and practiced, reach around the child's chest to pull the silk ribbons together. She loops them, pulls the knot snug, and smooths the fabric flat against the little girl's chest. That simple physical interaction is repeated thousands of times across a human lifespan. A mother ties it for her daughter. A sister helps a nervous bride adjust her ribbons on her wedding morning. An old woman, her hands shaking slightly with age, meticulously ties her own ribbon before paying respects at the family ancestral altar. The knot holds the clothing together, yes, but it also visually and physically ties the generations to one another. It is a daily practice of finding balance in an unpredictable world. We return to the heart of Seoul as the afternoon sun begins to lower, casting long golden shadows across the vast stone courtyards of Gyeongbokgung Palace. The mountains loom blue and jagged in the background, standing completely still while the city rushes around them. If you had come to this exact spot 20 years ago, you might have seen only a few older people in traditional dress, or perhaps paid performers putting on a historical reenactment for tourists. The Hanbok was becoming something kept in dark closets, wrapped in protective tissue paper, brought out only for weddings, funerals, or major holidays. It felt like a beautiful relic slowly slipping into the invisible past. But look around the palace grounds today. You will see hundreds of young people. High school students laughing loudly, young couples on romantic dates, university friends out for a sunny afternoon. They are all wearing hanbok. Some are highly traditional, deeply respectful of the old silhouettes and muted colors. Others have altered the rules entirely. Girls wander past in voluminous bright silk skirts paired with white canvas sneakers, their hair dyed in pastel clouds. Nearby, young men stroll in the sweeping coats of historical scholars, sipping iced coffees and capturing the afternoon on their phones. It is very easy for cultural purists to look at this scene and complain that the heavy tradition is being watered down for cheap entertainment. But sit quietly on a stone bench and just watch them for a moment. Listen to their unrestrained laughter echoing against the ancient wooden pillars. Watch how a teenager spins in circles just to feel the heavy silk of her skirt lift into the air around her. They are not treating the clothing like a fragile museum exhibit. They are playing in it. They are breathing actual life back into the seams. This is exactly how culture survives. It does not survive by being locked in a glass case and protected from the changing world. It survives by being worn, scuffed, altered, and genuinely loved by the next generation. These young people are looking back at their history not with a sense of dusty, heavy obligation, but with genuine pride and a desire to claim it as their own daily reality. As the evening approaches, the palace guards begin to herd the lingering visitors toward the massive wooden gates. The modern city waits just outside the high walls, a chaotic symphony of car horns, rushing buses, and towering video billboards. The teenagers walk out into that modern chaos, their long silk skirts brushing casually against the dirty concrete sidewalks, the ancient colors blending seamlessly into the neon twilight. The past and the present do not fight each other here. They walk hand in hand down the avenue. When you take off a hanbok at the end of the long day, you do not hang it on a shaped wooden hanger. You fold it flat on the floor. It collapses completely, becoming nothing more than a series of straight lines and flat squares of fabric resting quietly in a box. It is only when a human being steps inside it that it truly takes its shape. It requires the warmth of a living person, the fluid movement of a body, and the gentle breath of the wind to become whole again. Perhaps that is the truest reflection of Korean culture itself. It is a culture that has endured unimaginable historical hardships, folding itself away when necessary, surviving the absolute darkest of winters. But whenever the warm light returns, whenever the safe space is given, it expands into something breathtakingly beautiful, full of volume, deep resilience, and quiet grace. A piece of woven clothing cannot hold memories. It cannot love or remember. But the calloused hands that wove the cloth, the mothers who tied the ribbons in the quiet mornings, and the young people who spin laughing in the palace courtyards, all carry the memory forward. The soul is not in the silk. The soul is in the people who wear it, carrying the invisible wind of their ancestors into the rhythm of tomorrow. If you found a quiet piece of yourself in this journey, leave a space for us in your ongoing travels by subscribing to Culture Journey. Share this quiet moment with someone who appreciates the beautiful depth of our world. We will be here, waiting to walk with you again. Until then, travel slowly, look closely, and take care.